Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Yes, it's the Skeptic Zone podcast, coming to you from a flying saucer for the 30th of July 2023, episode 773. There's a flying saucer going overhead right now, as they frequently do here over the Skeptic Zone studios, otherwise known as United Air something or other, or is it Qantas, or I don't know what it is. It must be a UAP. Coming up on this week's show, where are the aliens? Where are they? Are they here? Are they there? Are they from another dimension? Are they hiding on the far side of the moon? With the recent buzz news flap scare about aliens and UFOs, especially in the United States with the congressional subcommittee hearing, we look into the social media reaction to, well, I like the term UFOs. It sort of covers everything, I think. Are we about to welcome our alien overlords? I wonder. And though I've said this before, I'll say it again for the record, there is nothing I can think of that would prohibit or stop or make impossible life forms from other planets visiting the Earth. I just don't think it's happening because of the severe lack of good evidence. As Carl Sagan said, paraphrasing, I think, for all I know, there is a different extraterrestrial civilization visiting us every second Tuesday. But there's no evidence for this appealing idea. Following our trip around the solar system on a UFO, we listened to Adrienne Hill from Skookum Studios in Calgary, Canada. Hello, Adrienne. And she'll be telling us all about the latest Australian Skeptics Newsletter. After that, it's back to the UFOs. They come back in the form of flying saucers, and not the ones from your kitchen. We look into the history of Australian newspapers, the archive at Trove, with references to the term flying saucer from the 1940s, 1950s, and 1960s. Yes, way back then they thought any day now the aliens would appear. Then to round off the show, another new song from Nathan Eggins, also known as Conspiracy of One, and the song is called A Cure for Miracles. And of course you can find out more about Nathan Eggins and his work at conspiracyofone.com. Now, before we get into this week's episode, about a week ago I appeared here in Australia on TV on a show called the 7:30 Report, which is like a news current affair interview type program, and I was on to talk about psychics and psychic scams. I make a brief appearance, I make a few good points, I hope, and I even bend a spoon, which always gets a laugh. You can see that appearance of me. If you don't know what I look like, you can see me bend a spoon. Just follow the link in this week's show notes. There's a direct link to the YouTube video. An interesting story where they tend to give somebody claiming psychic power a very good exposure indeed. Oh well. But now it's time for me to run downstairs. I wonder if there's an alien in the kitchen. Well, there are two cats, I know that for sure. And what will I have? How about a cheese pie? Could you cook pies? I've never tried to cook a pie. I like pies and I like cheese. What do you think? While I do that, I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone. Where are the aliens? Where are they? One of the reasons I got into skepticism, or one of the reasons that I got into the mysteries of the universe and all the things that to this day still hold this fascination for me, is that when I was a young kid in the 1970s, I really did believe in UFOs, meaning aliens were visiting the Earth and flying around. And of course they were. It was obvious. I saw reports. There were books. It was appealing. It was just a good idea. And fast forward to 2023, with various UFO fads and crazes coming and gone over the years, we have now the situation where those people appeared, I don't have to tell you the details, in front of Congress and testified under oath that they believe that UFOs are here and aliens are here too. Now, I have some points to make about this latest news in the UFO world. I still prefer the term UFO because that's what really, when you get down to it, people are talking about. And by that, I mean they're talking about alien spacecraft. Well, for the most part. So before I talk about the recent hearings in Washington, let me play to you a TikTok video I made, TikTok posting last week when I was having a bit of an exercise walk, and all these thoughts were swirling around my head about UFOs coming and going, and this is what I said. Something about being a skeptic for so many years, almost 25 years with the Australian Skeptics, and all the investigations I've done, coupled with the archive information we have going back decades and decades and decades, is you see things that come and go and come back again. I've lived through a couple of UFO fads, notably in the 1970s around the time of Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And I have in the skeptical archives many documentaries made through many decades, all saying UFOs are here, aliens have arrived, they're here, any day now the truth will come out, the government is hiding them, we've spoken with people who have been abducted. This goes on decade after decade after decade. You would think by now the real evidence would be there, surely. I mean, do these UFOs only crash conveniently where government agencies can scoop them up? Look at that. That would be a nice place for UFOs to land. Or why do they vandalize crop fields? Well, not so much anymore. That's another fad that's come and gone. And what really tickles me is the media keep showing again and again and again the famous videos like Go Fast, Tic Tac, the green triangles in the sky, that sort of stuff. But these videos have been very well deconstructed and explained. There's really nothing too mysterious going on. There's nothing that couldn't be normal terrestrial aircraft and other phenomena. It's, to use a very crude term, it's been debunked. They've been debunked. So the media, when they show them, are either just too lazy to research the fact that these videos have been more or less debunked, or they know they look good. It's eye candy, and it helps get people to watch the story. I give this latest craze another year, maybe 2 years, 3 years, who knows? And then there'll be something else for us to think about. Now, what's interesting, if you go to that video, and you can follow me on TikTok, if you go to skepticzone.tv and click the TikTok link at the top of the page, is that I have had a series of correspondence, people posting to that with their comments. And one of my correspondents has posted, "This is going to age like milk," meaning I'm going to look silly. It's going to not age well. I will be proven wrong. I think you get the gist. My reply was, "I suggest you bookmark this video and visit it once a year to see how it goes." Now, by that I mean I really have to play the long game. But skeptics have been playing the long game for decades. And we have decades to call upon and point to, saying decade after decade after decade, the evidence is still not forthcoming. My correspondent goes on when he's talking about these latest hearings, "We are literally at the point of put up or shut up. These whistleblowers will be jailed if lying." Now, here's a point that a lot of people seem to be missing, that these so-called whistleblowers, it's a false dichotomy. Either they're telling the truth and aliens are real, or they're knowingly deceiving and lying. The false dichotomy is, of course, the middle ground of they are honestly deceived themselves seems to be ignored. And that seems the most likely. And a lot of people out there are putting a lot of credence on the fact that these people testified. And that's turned into, as we'll hear, people claiming that now the US government has admitted that aliens are real and spaceships are here. Of course, that doesn't mean that at all. And then my correspondent goes on with classic misunderstanding and misrepresentation of the skeptical point of view, where he's trying to get me in a gotcha moment. And he posts, "Here are some things skeptics got wrong. The existence of black holes, plate tectonics, the heliocentric model of the solar system, and many, many more." It's a classic misunderstanding of science. My reply was, "I'm sorry. Skeptics said the sun was the center of the solar system and were persecuted for it." And then I went on to say, "I'm afraid you don't understand the workings of science. When new ideas come along, it is the role of science to be skeptical and question it. Sometimes those new ideas or theories withstand skepticism and become part of our scientific understanding. The skepticism, however, is vital." And I think my opponent, if I may use that term, I think the penny dropped a little bit and he could see my point. But we've heard that, I've heard that many times before. You skeptics said that the world was flat. Or similar such absurdities, as if to get to have us in a gotcha moment. But getting back to these hearings, and as I said before, one of the things now that's happened is there are a lot of people, probably thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people, now have this completely erroneous idea that the US government has admitted that aliens are real and sources, flying saucers, alien spacecraft have crashed on Earth and they've been reverse engineering, etc. A lot of people now firmly believe this is true because, hey, it was said in Washington. And there's some interesting flow-on effects from this. Let's look briefly, or let's hear briefly, a part of a video on TikTok from a user called Prayer Warrior.
Yesterday was a huge day in the United States of America where the House Oversight Committee, the Congress, met to talk about and talk with the whistleblowers who came out and are talking about the fact that, yes, there are UFOs and yes, there are aliens. Listen, this is aligning with end-time scripture. For those of us who are Christians, we're in our Bible all the time, we're watchmen, we're seeing prophecy unfold, we're trying to get through to you about what times we're in. These are exciting times for us. If you are not a Christian, this should be a very terrifying time for you. There is a reason that the elitists, the Satanists that run this world are now coming out with the agenda that aliens and UFOs are real after years and years and years and years of cover-up by the government saying that those are conspiracy theorists, they're not real, Area 51 is false, we don't have any aliens, we don't have any alien aircrafts, like we have none of that. And now suddenly in 2023, they're saying, just kidding, we do. It's all true.
So that's my point entirely. Because of this fiasco that went on in Washington, there are now thousands of people who really think the US government has admitted to aliens and UFOs. And in this particular case, a Christian has decided that this is a indication of possibly the end times. And here from another user called Sean is another take on this sudden revelation that the US government have aliens.
I really am wondering this evening if it is written in any history book ever, how close a society is to collapse when their government confirms the possession of aliens and nobody moves. Nobody flinches, nobody bats an eye. It's barely trending on Twitter. I didn't major in history in college or anything, but that can't be a good sign, what I'm saying?
So the point here is, if this is not a satirical account, she is now firmly of the opinion that the US government has admitted that aliens are real. Now let's have a listen to what another TikTok user, Marjorie, has to say.
In case you missed it today, the United States government held hearings on aliens, interdimensional beings, and UFOs. These discussions are now part of public record. I don't know about y'all, but I find it both equally weird and fascinating that most of the public is just okay, carry on. I'm just trying to figure out how to put gas in my car tank and food on the table. According to sworn testimony, there are tons of technologies that have been kept from the public by corporations, medical advances, things that would make the combustion engine obsolete. So at the bare minimum, the Earth would basically heal itself from all pollution and none of us would have to pay for gas, electric, energy anymore, which is pretty freaking cool. Of course, this corporations hoarding this information have been up to some shady stuff. I don't know, it's interesting to see what was happening right under our noses and how our very future is about to change, drastically. What a time to be alive.
Well, my advice to Marjorie is don't hold your breath. And finally, and of course there are thousands of similar videos, what does the account of I Love Bible have to say?
Yeah, you too, Allison. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So what do you make of former U.S. intelligence official David Grush's statement at the House hearing stating that we recovered non-human remains from an alien craft?
Yeah, well, actually, if you read the Bible, this shouldn't surprise you. Because I think this is all part of a custom-tailored last days deception to explain away the very event that God says is next on his prophetic time calendar. And that event is called the rapture of the church. And that is when God evacuates all born-again Christians, takes them off the planet before the worst time in the history of mankind is thrust upon the planet. The Bible calls that time the 7-year tribulation.
So that's just a taste, a small sample of what's out there. And you can imagine the ramifications of this now. And I wonder what will be happening over the next year, 2 years, 3 years, when the aliens don't appear, the UFOs, the crashed saucers are not found or brought out or examined or made publicly known. I would imagine most of the population will simply forget about it because fads and trends come and go. And as I said in my TikTok video, we'll think about something else. Or I can also envisage many people will simply see it as part of the wider conspiracy of the government trying to cover up things. Well, they will always think that regardless. Sincerely, I don't know what we can do too much to counter this except do what we do, because although I'm grateful for everybody who listens to the Skeptic Zone or watches my TikToks or something like that, and my fellow skeptics around the world are trying to do similar things, the army of darkness out there with its misinformation and sheer ignorance, it's astounding, will have a much wider reach. But that doesn't mean we should give up. As my old friend Professor Paul Willis told me many years ago, we might not win, but we can lose, and we should never give up. If the aliens are here and the crash sources are here, so be it. So be it. But I would find it, for many reasons, extremely unlikely. Finally, as I said to my correspondent on TikTok, visit the video again in a year and we'll see how bad the milk tastes.
Hello, Skeptic Zone listeners. This is Susan Gerbic from the GSOW Wikipedia Project. I also explore the world of psychic mediums, grief vampires, and expose their tricks and methods to exploit people. If you'd like to join me on this journey, please subscribe to my channel on YouTube, Psychics Explained. Or if you need help remembering that name, it's also Psychic Sex Planed. I think I'll get a lot more viewers that way. But please join the conversation and subscribe.
Hello everyone, this is Adrienne Hill from Skookum Studios in Calgary, Canada, and I'm here to read the highlights from the Australian Skeptics Newsletter. This is newsletter number 178, and you can subscribe to this newsletter and get it delivered to your inbox every other week, complete with links to all the stories. Just visit www.skeptics.com.au. But now, let's see what Tim Mendham has for us this week. Hi all, says Tim. The job of being a skeptic goes on. German skeptics dealing with recalcitrant journals. Journals publishing shonky studies. And for those outside of Australia, the word shonky means more or less to be of bad quality or bad design, which is the opposite of skookum. Religious people rejecting science, countering the usual conspiracies. And why doesn't East Sussex have enough crop circles? Does East Sussex have any crops? That might be an issue. Read on, Tim. Okay, Tim, I'll do just that. Government ends school chaplaincy tax deduction. The federal government has decided not to extend the eligibility of Scripture Union, a school chaplaincy provider, to receive tax-deductible gifts. Naturally, the organization described it as, quote, disappointing and unexpected, end quote. The decision followed a complaint to the ATO that it had received $33 million in donations. The Scripture Union warned that the decision would probably result in cuts to chaplaincy services. A parent secular education group, Queensland Parents for Secular State Schools, wants chaplains scrapped and student well-being officers employed instead. That makes sense. Scammers posing as popular psychics. Psychics being scammed. Bad news for everyone. You can see the 7-minute video of the story from the 7:30 report as shown on ABC TV by clicking on the link in this week's show notes. See Richard Saunders bend a spoon. That is a thrill. And fun. And Richard Saunders is definitely the highlight. Medicine plagued by untrustworthy clinical trials. Following on from similar stories in the last newsletter, investigations suggest that, in some fields, at least 1/4 of clinical trials might be problematic, or even entirely made up. Long article, but good examples. Barriers to criticism of homeopathy. GWUP, the German skeptics group, alongside campaigner Edzard Ernst, is waging a campaign, or at least trying to get a leading science journal to point out that homeopathy is, well, bunk. A year later, and the journal has informed them that their letter was not a priority that would justify publication. So they've published their letter on Ernst's blog. Meanwhile, several skeptics have published a paper on the justification of criticism of homeopathy and shows that disinterest and indifference towards pseudomedicine are simply not acceptable in the scientific community. And don't forget that Germany is where homeopathy started, so it is a slow and arduous effort to get critical views heard. How religion shapes vaccine views. This is an interesting discussion on how ideas about God and beliefs about the Bible can influence individuals' views on vaccines, COVID or otherwise. Not necessarily the sects you might immediately think of. Why are there no new ghosts? This is a question that has been raised before. Quote, apparently people stopped turning into ghosts after World War II, perhaps even earlier. Ever hear anyone talk about the ghost of some Fonzie-like greaser who croaked in the 50s? End quote. And you certainly don't see them wearing a bunny hug. And I don't mean a bunny is hugging them. You will find out what I mean at the end of this segment. Moon landing hoax theories. This is a good review and debunking of the conspiracy claims. Alternatively, you can read a detailed discussion in The Skeptic magazine from Australian skeptics. Update: Skepticon 2023. Tickets for convention and dinner. Tickets are now available for Skepticon 2023, the 39th Australian Skeptics Annual National Convention. The convention itself will be held on December 2nd through 3rd at the Ian Potter Auditorium in the Kenneth Meyer Building, University of Melbourne, Parkville. There will be a Friday social event on the evening of December 1st and a dinner on Saturday, December 2nd at the St. Andrews Hotel in Fitzroy. We're working on the September issue of The Skeptic, packed full of essential reading and goodies. I wonder if there's any musk sticks to be found with the goodies. Meanwhile, the June issue of The Skeptic magazine is out. The issue contains an in-depth look at the legal and financial goings-on of the anti-vaccination movement. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time to do so. You can sign up for a hard copy or the digital edition, or both, since the digital is offered free to those who take up the hard copy version. Contact the editor if you're not sure if your existing subscription needs renewing. Items of interest. New drone footage of Bigfoot, hailed as the best yet. Interesting film shot from a drone, with lots of holes in the claim as the comments point out. Worth viewing briefly, just so you know what the latest best footage is like. Listicle. UK crop circle hotspots revealed. The UK places with the most crop circles have been revealed, hinting at which regions are the most likely to see extraterrestrial activity. Meanwhile, East Sussex is miffed that it rated with the lowest number. Come on, aliens, what's wrong with a town like Ringmer? Now, doesn't that sound like it's just calling out for a circle or two? Woman frozen in time shocks and stumps onlookers. A video of a woman, quote, stuck in time, end quote, on a street in England might show a real glitch in the Matrix. Or it might be fakery. Video tech specialists, please. Psychic penguins predicted Women's World Cup opener. Here we go. Another World Cup, another psychic animal story. This one might have been a bit biased. The Penguins kicked a ball at flags of the competing countries, but with a large Australian flag and a much smaller Irish one. And the result may not be so surprising. The mysteries of the Alaska Triangle. What? Bermuda not good enough for you? Quote, vanishing planes, energy vortexes, and UFO sightings, end quote. If you had the choice between researching in Bermuda or Alaska, which one would you choose? What does the church say about ghosts? Obviously, ghosts aren't human spirits. That would just be silly. No, they're demons. Misleading headline of the week. Derbyshire Big Cat. Video shot in the Peak District shows men shocked after they spot big black cat just 6 feet away. Had to run the whole headline for context. The video they took doesn't show a cat, but as the headline might imply, maybe it does show men shocked. But you wouldn't know, as whatever video they did shoot isn't included in the story. It's like getting an empty box for Christmas. So I say, bah, humbug. Well, that was fun. And today's Canadian words come from Saskatchewan, the province that is east of Alberta. Saskatchewan was also Richard Saunders' previous home when he was very young. I discovered this word from listener Kat, who also used to live in Saskatchewan, but now harkens from Edmonton, Alberta, which is just 3 hours north of where I live. A bunny hug, also called, believe it or not, a kangaroo jacket. Yes, I said kangaroo jacket, is simply a hoodie. It just has to have a big pocket in the front. It can have a zipper or not. And according to globalnews.ca, the first mention of a bunny hug was in 1978 and has since become a regular part of the vernacular of Saskatchewan. I certainly had never heard of it, but I love the name and I think it might become part of my growing skookum vocabulary. And thank you, Kat. Until next time, this is Adrienne Hill. And that's a wrap.
Hey, Adrienne.
Hi, Susan. Out for some shopping, eh?
Yep, I'm stocking up on this imitation maple syrup from Australia.
Imitation? Imitation? No. You need to buy the real thing from Canada.
But I saw the TV commercial and it said that noted pancake eating expert Richard Saunders says it's the best maple syrup money can buy, and 60% of people preferred it in a blind taste test. Everyone knows it's the best.
Oh, come on, Susan. You know better than that. That's the argument from authority.
It is?
Or is it the argument from popularity? It might be another logical fallacy. I'm not sure.
Really? If only we had a way of finding out.
Hello, everyone.
Oh my, it's the skeptical fairy godmother angel from the internet.
Yes, that's right. But how did you know who I am?
I listened to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Also, didn't you used to be the tooth fairy?
Oh, yes. I remember you. I'll never forget your left upper lateral incisor. Would you like it back?
No, it's okay. You keep it.
Hey, skeptical fairy godmother angel. What are you doing here in the supermarket?
I've come to tell you that you can find out about 40 different logical fallacies on YouTube in one handy location. Listen to each one to hear an explanation and examples of how they might be used.
Oh.
Just go to tinyurl.com/logicalzone and you'll find all the logical fallacies with Michelle Bickersma with handy time codes to get to the exact one you want.
Who is Michelle Bickersma?
Oh, just a friend of mine.
tinyurl.com/logicalzone. Thank you, skeptical fairy godmother angel. I guess you'll disappear in a puff of smoke and thunder now, eh?
Not quite yet. I have a bit of shopping to do. Susan?
Yes?
Where do I find the Australian maple syrup?
What? No. Come with me, so-called skeptical fairy. This is real maple syrup from Canada. Made with real maple.
It's time once again to look to the heavens, to look to the skies, to look to the stars above in hopes of seeing a flying saucer. No luck? No luck? Flying saucers? Okay. I think we better look in the pages of Trove. Yes, Trove, the online resource from the Australian Government and the National Library of Australia. Of course, full of digitised newspaper clippings. In fact, entire newspapers, entire magazines, and so on. Now, this week I was going to look at phrenology, reading the bumps of the head, but I thought I would put that back 1 week because of the recent news coming out of the United States, the startling, unbelievable news that there's still no evidence for aliens visiting Earth or crashed UFOs or anything like that. Nevertheless, the UFO community is having a good time at the moment. So let's look back through the archives. And normally I would look up the term UFO, but this week I decided to just try a different tack to come up with different reports and use the older term, the great old term of flying saucers. And we'll start with the Border Watch from Mount Gambier in South Australia, dated the 8th of January 1948. Flying saucers. And this appears to be taking, what shall we say, some poetic license? Although the skeptics may be scoffing at the news, the cable states flying saucers in the offing, some as large as dinner plates. If you take the right prescription, and indeed you drink enough, they will come up to description and appear to do their stuff. Messages from Mars they're bringing, terrors new for timid souls. In the moonlight skies they are winging. Some come singly, some in shoals. Mystic messages so thrilling, luminous and eerie flakes, twisting, twirling, often splitting, out pink elephants and snakes. Courage, brother. You have still a simple cure. Although it may appear unpleasant, one can guarantee it's sure. When you see the flying saucers, take this course and do not hedge. All their terrors you're defying if you run and sign the pledge. And that's attributed to R.J.W. Shakespokes. And of course, signing the pledge refers to abstaining from alcohol. A bit of tongue-in-cheek there from 1948. Now, 20 years later, 1968, on the 5th of June, in the Canberra Times. Flying saucers. The Minister for Air, Mr. Freeth, said he could not give any encouragement to people who wanted the Commonwealth to provide grants for research into unidentified flying objects. He was replying to Mr. Stokes, Liberal Victoria, who said the Commonwealth Aerial Phenomenon Investigation Organisation had requested the grants. Now that's interesting. The Commonwealth Aerial Phenomena Investigation Organisation. 1968. Mr. Stokes asked if Mr. Freeth had seen recent reports of UFO sightings in the Wonthaggi district of Victoria. As far as governments are concerned, it has never been precisely determined where science fiction ends and where those objects begin to be related to reality, Mr. Freeth said. And now jumping around the years, we end up in 1947. The Age, from Melbourne, Victoria, dated the 7th of July. Flying saucers, The Age special correspondent in New York and AAP, Australian Associated Press. Americans are baffled by reports of flying saucers, which, according to observers, are round metallic discs racing high across the sky, singly or in groups. First reports of them received on June 25 aroused skepticism, but credence in the sources has grown as a result of similar reports by hundreds of persons in 28 states. Actually, the first mysterious flying saucer was sighted in Oregon on June 25 by Kenneth Arnold, a businessman pilot of Boise, who reported that 9 missiles flew in formation at 1,200 miles per hour. Arnold confided, "I do not believe it, but I saw it." Since that day, the number of observers who have spotted saucers in the sky has increased daily. The traditional 4th of July outdoor picnics provided the best opportunity yet. Saucers were seen in all parts of the United States and several Canadian provinces. Perhaps the most reliable description came from Captain E.J. Smith of United Airlines. Ooh, United Airlines, I fly with them. Who reported seeing, quote, round, flat objects for 12 minutes, end quote, in the course of a flight over Idaho. The co-pilot, Ralph Stevens, and a stewardess confirmed Smith's story. But America is still waiting for the final or even a satisfactory explanation from military or scientific authorities. All sorts of opinions continue to be offered. Explanations include 1. Signals from Mars. 2. Saucer hysteria by people emotionally upset by fear of atomic war. 3. New experimental Navy planes known as flying pancakes. 4. Weather kites released by meteorological bureaus. 5. Something to do with atomic experiments. 6. Reflections from motorcar spotlights. And 7. Meteors. Now, 1952, the Goulburn Evening Post, dated the 27th of February. Flying saucers. Melbourne. Hydrogen-inflated coloured balloons released by atom scientists seeking data on cosmic rays could account for reports from various parts of the world concerning the existence of flying saucers. This opinion was expressed by Professor L.H. Martin of Melbourne University this morning. Scientists were continually sending up these balloons carrying nuclear plates 20 miles into the stratosphere during these experiments. Professor Martin said the balloons expanded and tended to flatten out and would look like saucers when seen high in the sky. Now let's see the year 1947 now in the Advocate from Tasmania, dated the 9th of July. Flying saucers. Scientists sceptical of Sydney claims. Sydney, Tuesday. 6 Sydney people today claim they saw flying saucers in the sky last night. However, Dr. A. H. Martin of the Australian Institute of Applied Psychology said that such claims could be attributed to mass hysteria or to collective illusions. Another theory that the phenomenon could be caused by the movement of red corpuscles passing across the retina of the eye was put forward by Professor F. S. Cotton, Professor of Psychology at Sydney University. Now, 1952 again, the Argus from Melbourne, dated the 14th of August. He's sceptical of saucers. Canberra, Wednesday. Mr. McMahon, Air Minister, will make, quote, a detailed and thorough investigation, end quote, into reports of flying saucers over Australia. But he, quote, believes most of the rumours have been circulated by one particular party, which is always flying kites, end quote. He told the House of Representatives today that the Air Force had information about the reports, but he believed they were, quote, flights of imagination, end quote. Mr. Downer, Liberal, South Australia, had asked if the Air Department had investigated the reports and what conclusions had been drawn. He also wanted to know if the department had been in contact with US authorities about the intruders. He asked Mr. McMahon if flying saucers were visitors from another sphere, another form of espionage by a potential enemy, or just aerial versions of the Loch Ness Monster. A Hobart message says a flying saucer was seen over the River Tamar in the vicinity of Rosevears, I think that's pronounced, apologies if that's not correct, near Launceston this afternoon by a number of people. He described the object, which he observed for about 4 minutes, as being round, bright, and metallic-looking. Very mysterious. Here's another short article from 1952, again, a popular year, The Examiner from Tasmania, 1st of August. Skeptical about sources. Seattle, Australian Associated Press. The United States Air Force Chief of Staff, General Hoyt Vandenberg, does not believe that there is any such thing as a flying saucer. He said this on Wednesday night and added that apparently there were physical phenomena which made people say they had seen a flying saucer. They are not machines flown by men from Mars, nor any foreign powers, he said. Nor does the Air Force or any United States military agency have a flying saucer. And finally, from the year 1954, the Daily Telegraph from Sydney on the 1st of June. Experts admit they are puzzled. Flying saucers are no joke, by Norman Strawn. And before we read that, the accompanying cartoon to this article is a man reading a newspaper in an armchair with his back turned on his son and apparently an alien his son has captured. And without looking, the dad says, "Okay, so you captured a Martian. Now, run along and play." 6 people claim to have seen a flying saucer over a Melbourne suburb on Sunday morning. They reported having watched an oval-shaped object with yellow flames pouring from it, travelling, quote, at a fantastic speed, end quote. Apparently, human figures were in it. Reports of saucer sightings some time ago moved out of the realm of the purely humorous. On May 16, General Twining, U.S. Air Force Chief of Staff, stated that 10% of all saucer reports are not being discounted, and that the best brains in America were working on the problem. A week later, Air Chief Marshal Lord Dowding, head of the RAF Fighter Command in the last war, said in England that people on other planets were operating through flying saucers to help the world in its present crisis. Several other level-headed soldiers and scientists have recently emphasized that saucer reports cannot be lightly regarded. Ever since 1947, when Kenneth Arnold, an American businessman flyer, reported seeing a chain of flat and shiny objects swerving in perfect formation between high mountain peaks at 1,000 miles an hour, the flying saucer scare has been in full flood. Tens of thousands of people from all over the world, though mostly in America, have since reported having seen saucer-like or cigar-shaped flying objects in the sky. It was only too easy at first to explain away the reports as illusions, hoaxes, natural phenomena, or the products of mass hysteria and war nerves. Today, at least 7 governments have special departments which are trying to probe these mysterious objects, including the USA, Britain, and Russia. And in the US, 75 double-barreled cameras have been sent up at special sighting stations in 33 states, specifically to obtain photographic evidence. In 1952, Captain Ed J. Ruppelt, a World War II flyer and director of the U.S. Air Force Saucer Research Bureau, classified some 1,700 reports received in that year from all over the world. Reports not only from civilians, but also from airline pilots, scientists, balloon observers, and radar operators. 38% of the sightings were attributed to astronomical bodies, 22% to birds and aircraft, 13% to balloons, 2% to hoaxes, and 15% were unexplained. The unexplained 15%, this dropped to 10% in 1953, continues to baffle the Air Force. Nevertheless, the skeptics continue to scoff. Maybe we should be starting the scoffing club. General Hoyt Vandenberg summed up the reports as all nonsense, and Mr. Nigel Birch, British Undersecretary for Defence, as all baloney. Yet, even in conservative and cautious Britain, flying saucers are now being taken seriously. A jolt was given to Britain poo-pooers in November last year, when two RAF pilots flying their Vampire jets at 20,000 feet spotted a, quote, dead white circular object, end quote, high above them, which remained stationary for a time, then whizzed off at high speed over the channel. This report was publicly and officially confirmed a fortnight later by the War Office, which announced that an Army radar set had picked up and tracked the flight of the same, quote, strange object, end quote. It's the same story here in Australia. The Royal Australian Air Force Public Relations Officer, Mr. John Tyrrell, says, "It would be stupid to ignore them. We believe there's something flying around which cannot be regarded as the figment of someone's imagination. We don't know what it is. We have no concrete evidence of sources as such, but we simply can't discount certain reports from sane, rational people like seasoned RAAF and airline pilots." But if something is seen, what is it? Serious theories vary widely. Dr. Donald H. Menzel of Harvard University claims they are optical illusions caused by, quote, temperature inversion, end quote, which projects images of earthly lights on the sky. Others, including the Australian Minister for External Affairs, Mr. Casey, maintain with equal tenacity that they are meteorites. And then, of course, there are the melodramatic claims that sources are aircraft from Mars, perhaps manned by super bees, as philosopher Gerald Hurd suggested. Super bees, eh? But these fanciful claims are backed by no concrete evidence. No Martian man or bee has been captured or even photographed, although George Adamski, author of the sensational Flying Saucers Have Landed, has published a photograph of what purports to be a spaceship from the planet Venus. Perhaps the most plausible theory is that saucers are a secret weapon, either Russian or American. Officials in these countries vehemently deny this, but one would be naive to believe every official denial. The strongest argument against the secret weapon theory is the details of speed and maneuverability contained in reports from level-headed observers. These reports invariably refer to the sources as being, quote, intelligently controlled, end quote. When chased, they dodge out of the way and usually accelerate off at staggering speeds, variously estimated as 1,000 to 21,000 miles per hour. If the sources are man-made, they represent an almost unimaginable advance on any aircraft hitherto manufactured. All we can say at present is we don't know what they are, but whatever they are being taken seriously. Flying saucers, a term you really don't hear much anymore. It used to be UFOs, and now it's UAPs. I wonder what it will be in another 20 or 30 years. I shouldn't be amazed, but I guess I sort of am. I am amazed at the number of references to flying saucers, UFOs, etc. are in the annals of Australian newspapers. Thousands and thousands of references. It's a great story. Anyway, for more information on the history of UFO sightings in Australia, head to Trove at trove.nla.gov.au, because you never know what flying saucers you might find.
Hello, everybody. This is Jim Underdown from the Center for Inquiry Investigations Group in Los Angeles. I just wanted to give you a heads up to listen to my Point of Inquiry interview with your own Richard Saunders. Richard and I are joined by Rob Palmer as we talk about the Great Australian Psychic Prediction Project. Those two and several others did a great job tallying up thousands of predictions by people who say they can see into the future. What were the results? I won't give away any spoilers, but put it this way, Las Vegas is still up and running. Go to pointofinquiry.org for this and other fascinating lunacy.
Hello again, fellow skeptics. Nathan Eggins here, aka Conspiracy of One. I've been hard at work on my very first album, Road to Reason, and I'd love to share one of the songs with you. This song is a little more personal for me. I've seen firsthand the harm that so-called alternative medicine can do to vulnerable people. With so many out there selling miracle cures, what I want is a cure for miracles. The full album will be released during National Science Week in August, so please enjoy this small taste and I'll see you again soon.
You tell me you and I will be running through the sky in no time but tomorrow or the next day. Running real high and it's fine and our trouble will be far away. And we're never gonna stop doing what we do so well. But you're living in a lie, it's a pie in the sky that you're trying so hard to sell. One thing that's on your mind, why can't you sway your mind? Why won't I believe in miracles? All the time you try to get me on your side, saying what you need to get me into your spell. Can't you see I'm crying out 'cause what you've got won't cure my just hollow promises and fairy tales. What I want is a cure for you. You tell me it's real, but it's only a dream. It's like a limbo, how low can you go with the show that you're always trying to sell me? Like a bro, you're circling below my window with a boombox playing on repeat. And you will tell me stories that swear you were right. But it's a fact that I know that you don't want to show your facts out there among the light, 'cause it's too bright. I could be starving and you would sell me pictures of food from
P.S. You can find me and more of my skeptical music at conspiracyofonesolo.com. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. In a couple of days, I'm going to be climbing aboard a UAP or a flying saucer, or maybe that aircraft which is flying over the studios right now. I don't know which one. I'll be heading to California for a visit. I hope to catch up with my dear friend Susan Gerbic. I know I'll be catching up with my dear friend Dr. Eugenie Scott. And I'll be giving a talk. And this talk will be part of the Hangout series they are doing in the Bay Area. That will be on, let me have a look, that will be on the 13th of August at the Berkeley Public Library. And more information about that will appear at the website of baskeptics.org. And it's all about a workshop. I'll be teaching spoon bending, water divining, the tricks of the power balance wristbands, the body balance tricks, and I'll be teaching some origami for everybody as well. And I'll be giving that talk also, the workshop, in Bend, Oregon, on the night of the 29th of August. So local skeptics in those areas, check out the newsletters or your local information for that. Looking forward to seeing you there. Thank you to those people who continue to support the Skeptic Zone, and thank you very much to a rather lovely new supporter who just came on board this week via Patreon. And I'm very touched that you are supporting the show. I'm very pleased for everyone who supports the show, and you have my undying thanks. Coming up on next week's show, the delayed Trove segment on phrenology, bumps on the head, which I was originally going to run this week, but I thought maybe flying saucers might be more fun given the recent events in Washington. And I was just thinking, it's interesting, in years past, people were claiming that the UFOs were coming here from places like Venus and Mars. Naturally enough, in the 30s, 40s, 50s, or whatever it was, that's what you might think. But now we know Mars to be probably devoid of life, probably, and rather inhospitable, and Venus to be a hell, as Carl Sagan referred to it, a pressurized pressure cooker. The aliens seem to come now from much further afield, like the Pleiades, or other dimensions. There we are. That's easy. Where are the aliens and the ships? Well, they come here from another dimension and they disappear just as quickly. That explains it. But for this week, until next week's show from another dimension, this is Richard Saunders signing off from Sydney, Australia. You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Please visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for show notes, contacts, and to access the back catalogue of episodes going back to 2008. You can follow the Skeptic Zone podcast on Twitter at Skeptic Zone, visit our Facebook page, or leave a review on iTunes. You can also support the Skeptic Zone via Patreon or PayPal. The Skeptic Zone podcast is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed on the Skeptic Zone are not necessarily those of Australian skeptics or any other skeptical organisation. Today, at least 7 governments have special departments which are trying to probe these mysterious objects, including the USA, Britain, and Russia. Henny, I'm trying to record. Yeah, you. I'm talking about flying saucers, not flying cats. Are you going to be good?